He is a conservative. He is a patriot. He is a veteran, and he is also the Attorney General of the great state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey. So you decided to file a lawsuit against New York in regards to this case against President Donald Trump. I've seen some people who have said this was a political stunt. I've seen people say that it'll be, ruled out on no standing. What is the case? Where does it stand? And what do you think is going to happen?
This is an attempt to upend and undermine a national presidential election.
But in my words, not the general's words, the left is unhinged. We have a garbage president. We have a garbage administration.
Oh my gosh, this country's in trouble. President Biden should not even be on the ballot, but he is.
If they've lied to you this much to prop up a slightly animated corpse and make Joe Biden look like he's relevant and stable and, sturdy, what else have they lied to you about? What was your takeaway? I just have to ask you this as a side thought. Did you watch the debate, and what was your takeaway?
Oh gosh, yeah, I mean...
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the Chad Prather Show. You know where you are, you know why you're here, and we appreciate you being here. Before we get started with a very important episode today, I want you to go to where podcasts are offered, leave us a 5-star rating and a review. I don't even care what you say in the review. You can call my mother something. It doesn't matter. Just do it. We'll come find you. We have people, but just do it. Leave the review. It helps drive the algorithm, and we appreciate it. We need all the help we can get. WatchChad.com is where all the fun stuff is. Now, before... we blow your mind with some stuff, let me just tell you that Wikipedia is a horrible place to ever go try to find out anything about somebody. And I will tell you more about that in a minute, but let me welcome my guest. He is a conservative. He is a patriot. He is a veteran, and he is also the Attorney General of the great state of Missouri, Andrew Bailey. Welcome to the show. How are you, sir?
Hey, Chad. Thank you so much for having me on, man. Doing good.
You're a busy man. I went to Wikipedia, and you know what? I know you without knowing you, so it's a pleasure to meet you in this format. But I tell you, the last place I ever go look to find out about people is Wikipedia, because if anybody goes to mine, they're going to see some horrible things. Because the people, whoever writes that stuff, tries to make conservatives look as bad as they possibly can. Like, this guy is a bum. He's a loser. I want you to look at how bad this stuff is he values and pursues. And I found myself reading the bullet points, and I was like, I like Andrew Bailey more and more with every sentence. Whether it's abortion or, gender affirming care. I hate even using that phrase that they use, or the ATF or what you're doing with New York right now. It's amazing to me. I'm like, I agree 100% with this man. So you tell me, first of all, how did you become, because you're in the middle of a primary right now, how did you become the Attorney General of Missouri?
Man, just blessings from God and good fortune, and having the privilege to have some opportunities. I grew up in mid-Missouri, went to Mizzou on an Army ROTC scholarship, volunteered after 9/11, volunteered for combat service, volunteered to go to Iraq, did 2 deployments as an armored cavalry scout platoon leader, executive officer, and eventually troop commander. Came home and went back to Mizzou on the post 9/11 GI Bill. And all I ever wanted to do was be a prosecuting attorney. My wife, I'd met a gal from Texas that I was stationed in the Army down there. We got married after law school. And then we ended up in Warren County, Missouri, at a third-class county rural jurisdiction. And I was an assistant prosecutor, would have done that job the rest of my life. My wife and I was also the attorney for the county juvenile office. My wife and I became foster parents and went from no kids to having adopted multiple kids overnight. All of a sudden, I couldn't afford to be an assistant prosecutor. So I went to work at the Missouri Department of Corrections on June 1st, 2018, the day our Governor Parson, took office. And he didn't have a staff when he took over. And so he was looking for folks to come help him out on his staff, saw me working at DOC, pulled me up to be on staff with him. So I just happened to be at the right place at the right time when my predecessor, Eric Schmidt, moved on to the United States Senate. I tell you, it's been a blessing and a privilege to get to, an honor to get to serve in this capacity over the past 18 months. We've done a lot of fighting and winning for Missourians.
Well, and something that you don't tell people is if I understand it right from a mutual friend of ours, is that you're the recipient of 2 Bronze Stars. And so thankful for your service. And we just, at the time of this taping, we're a few days past Independence Day, and I hope you celebrated a great one. It's wild how we kind of lose the meaning of what Independence Day is in this country. But quite honestly, a lot of our liberties are being taken from us, and you're in the fight to make sure that we retain that type of freedom. And it's a shame that the platforms out there do what they can to villainize men and women like yourself who are in the fight and making things happen. Let me get straight to this point. So you decided to file a lawsuit against New York in regards to this case against President Donald Trump. You've had some news that has come out about that just recently. I've seen some people who have said this was a political stunt. I've seen people say that it'll be, ruled out on no standing. What is the case? Where does it stand? And what do you think is going to happen?
Well, this is about fighting back against the lawfare that radical progressives at the DOJ and the blue state are injecting as poison into our democratic process. No one stops to talk about that. This is an attempt to upend and undermine a national presidential election. We can't let a rogue prosecutor and collusive judiciary in the state of New York who have obtained a legally invalid conviction because the process was replete with constitutional error, incurable constitutional error, I might add. And we can't let that upend a national presidential election. I get constituents all the time who are saying, hey, AG, can President Trump even be on the ballot? Can we still go vote for him? Is he going to be allowed to vote? Is he going to be allowed to serve as president if he's in a prison in New York? And so what the state of New York has done through this judicial process, and again, this illicit lawfare, is inject a level of obfuscation and confusion that's intended to dampen enthusiasm for conservatives who want to go out and vote for President Trump. And it's harming Missourians. We have a right as a sovereign state to participate on equal footing with other states in a national election. And I can't let a rogue Soros-backed prosecutor in a blue state take Missourians out of the election process and silence not only President Trump's voice, but our right to hear from and access President Trump in the heat of a campaign in the most consequential presidential election in this nation's history. And that's what we're fighting for. Look, we'll see what the court does, but the founders contemplated that there would be disputes amongst the states, and they codified a method to redress those grievances in Article 3, Section 2 of the United States Constitution. This is an original action at the United States Supreme Court, and that's where it's allowed to be filed because of the plain text of the Constitution. So we're going to take this matter before the Supreme Court. I would say this: the normal criminal appeals process takes 18 to 24 months, and it only redresses an individual's grievance. That process in the state of New York is inadequate to protect the rights of Missourians to participate in this national presidential election and hear from their chosen presidential candidate.
So we just saw the ruling that was handed down by the Supreme Court. What is the ramifications of that ultimately? I mean, everybody's up in a stir, losing their minds over that ruling. What does that mean for America?
Well, it means exactly what the founders intended and they built into the structure of the Constitution, which is that the president has broad authority to meet exigencies and to enforce the laws given to him by Congress, and that he's got to have legal latitude to do that. Certainly, the founders would have understood the concept of sovereign immunity, and that's merely what the court reaffirmed. That concept existed for the president prior to this ruling. It was just reaffirmed and made explicit in the Supreme Court's ruling. So anything the president done is in his official capacity, carrying out the core functions of the presidency, he is immune from suit for doing those things. But it's not what the left is saying. They're screaming about how the president can murder innocent people for no reason if he wants to, or attack political opponents, and physically harm them. Those aren't true because those aren't core functions of the presidency. So he's not immune for things he does outside of the law. He's immune for carrying out his official duties. And that's the proper understanding of the United States Constitution.
Yeah, I saw a lot of the Twitter bots and the Riri progressives on X saying that now the president should send in SEAL Team 6 and should not only wipe out the former president, but his followers as well. People really have no understanding of what's going on. But in my words, not the general's words, the left is unhinged. We have a garbage president. We have a garbage administration. What was your takeaway? I just have to ask you this as a side thought because I know your heart. Did you watch the debate, and what was your takeaway from that?
Oh, gosh. Yeah. I mean, President Biden looked terrible. He clearly lacks the mental faculties to serve as the commander in chief of the United States of America and the top executive office in this country. I think that, our adversaries internationally are emboldened by his weakness. President Trump looked sharp as always. He has actually sharpened. I mean, how is it that this guy who did so much for this country to make America great again is still so on fire with his passion and love for this country and his acumen and ability to solve real problems that impact everyday working folks? So, I think the choice is clear here. President Biden should not even be on the ballot, but he is. And at this point, if the left tries to swap him out, it'll be the ultimate, bait and switch kind of shell game, which again, that should not be happening because that undermines the integrity of the democratic process, especially in states like Missouri, where we've already had a caucus and our political parties have already selected electors to go cast their votes for their chosen presidential candidates. And so, not only is the lawfare hurting Missourian electors' abilities to engage in that process, but a bait and switch on the Democratic ticket would do the same thing. So, yeah, Biden looks terrible. Oh, my gosh, this country's in trouble.
It is in trouble. And I think he looked even worse with the interview with George Stephanopoulos. I don't think he's so used to softball questions, or at least being prepped with what questions are going to come. I mean, here's a man who needs a schematic to know where the podium is before he walks up to it. And Stephanopoulos said, do you know how bad you sucked that night? I mean, it was basically what he asked him. And Biden had that deer in the headlights blank stare, like, I can't believe I'm being asked this question. But it's bad, because if they switch him out now, if they were to do that, it nullifies the whole primary process. You've got Kamala Harris, who's the only one who can use the millions upon millions of dollars of donation money that's been given for that campaign. What are they going to do? I mean, it looks to me like even in the midst of all the lawfare that they've tried and all of the different things that they've tried to push forth, the lies and the manipulation and the distortions, the cheap fakes, the deep fake accusations, all of this stuff is backfiring on them. From a political standpoint, do you see a way out for the Democrats right now? Because they're losing bad. I mean, common sense would tell you they're losing bad.
Oh, yeah, it's bad. They're in an infinitely regressive death spiral led by President Biden, who's completely asleep at the wheel. Let's talk about the immunity case again, just really quickly. After the Supreme Court handed down that decision, President Biden took to the podium at 5 o'clock. He's missing the early bird special. I mean, the cafeteria is going to run out of tapioca pudding if he's not careful. And he stands up there for less than 5 minutes and takes no questions and bemoans the Supreme Court, handing down this decision. He should be popping champagne. It helps him because it means he can't be prosecuted for aiding and abetting and conspiring to do human trafficking and fentanyl trafficking with the cartels across our southern border. So this guy should be celebrating this decision, not bemoaning it. But that just shows how far afield they are, and they can't win on the merits. They can't win an argument on the merits, so they have to censor our voices, deplatform, de-emphasize, and shadow ban us on big tech social media platforms. They can't defeat President Trump at the ballot box, so they have to try to take him off the ballot and commit lawfare to, again, inject this poison into our democratic process. I mean, the whole thing is offensive and noxious to who we are as an American people. The Constitution exists to protect us from the government, and the government exists to protect our rights. And yet here, time and time again, we see the government weaponized against an individual, and it's harming the rest of us, and people are repulsed by it. I think there's historical context here. If you look at 1798, just in our second presidency, John Adams and the Federalists enacted the Alien and Sedition Act, which was another form of lawfare. And it was intended to criminalize anyone who would speak out against the Federalist foreign policy. And you know what happened? People were upset about it. They realized it was unconstitutional. They were repulsed by it. And they ended up sweeping the Federalists from power 2 years later. I think you're seeing the same thing happen in overdrive now.
Yeah, they built a house of cards on a dangerous fault line, and the earthquakes and the winds and the hurricanes are blowing. And I've predicted this for the last, 5 or 6 years. I've actually used that allegory of the house of cards numerous times publicly because, again, you just can't build like this and not have your, the bad building and the bad architecture exposed. I see people all the time who say, this is elder abuse and I feel sorry for Joe Biden. I don't feel sorry for Joe Biden. This is a man who has fleeced the American people for 50 plus years in Washington, D.C. He set his crackhead son up as a pawn to be able to peddle influence and was okay with him being a crackhead. So then when the accusations came in, he could say, yeah, but he was an addict. He didn't know what he was doing. These are horrible human beings. I mean, these are terrible, thieving, grievous human beings that we have in this administration. administration. They'll lie to you. They'll cheat you. They'll steal from you. They'll tell you black is white and white is black and it's night. You know, we've seen that happen. You're not supposed to believe your eyes and your ears. We're seeing 1984 played out in front of us. And they want you to believe that you're a fool for believing anything else. I said yesterday on my X account, I said, you know, if they've lied to you this much to prop up a slightly animated corpse and make Joe Biden look like he's relevant and stable and you know, sturdy, what else have they lied to you about? I would say they definitely lied to you about 81 million votes. And so, and COVID and numerous other things that they foisted on the American people. You mentioned something about social media. Now, we also saw a Supreme Court decision come out in regards to the ability of social media companies to be coerced by the federal government. This is my loose, non-legal interpretation of this. We saw that happen when 51 government agents said that the laptop belonging to Hunter Biden was a Russian fake. It was a plant. That has since come out to be debunked. The laptop was used in the court case against Hunter Biden. It's submitted as evidence. I have seen the censorship on the part of social media. Am I understanding that right? That the federal government can actually limit the free speech of American citizens on a social media platform on the basis of how it may dictate something politically? What's the way to understand this properly? Because I'm not sure that I do exactly.
Well, and that's because the mainstream media has misreported this. And I see this all the time where the Supreme Court hands down a decision. The mainstream media is really quick to put its imprimatur on that decision and say, oh, the Supreme Court sides with Biden. Biden can do what he wants. And then if you read deeper and you go a little bit further, it ends up coming back around and the narrative gets corrected. But it takes time to penetrate kind of some of that the falsehoods that they're promoting. Look, at the end of the day, the First Amendment protects our right to free speech. And the whole idea is that we have a free, fair, and open marketplace of ideas where the people determine what is true based on the competition of ideas. And that's absent government censorship. The remedy for disfavored speech in this country has always been counter speech, not censorship. Certainly that remains true today. We started this lawsuit, Missouri v. Biden, where we've uncovered a relationship of coercion and collusion between the White House across a spectrum of bureaucratic agencies to silence American voices on big tech social media platforms. The federal government was absolutely censoring voices. And guess what? 100% of the voices that were censored were conservative voices. Anyone that spoke out against President Biden, his COVID tyranny, any issues that Biden was promoting that we disagreed with, he would drive our voices from public discourse. And 100% of the speech that was censored was core political speech protected by the First Amendment. We obtained preliminary discovery as part of to go get a preliminary injunction. And we went all the way to the United States Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court explicitly held that there was, in fact, government censorship, but that the censorship, the evidence we had established that censorship occurred in the years 2020 and 2021, and that we didn't presently have evidence to show that it was ongoing. And so the court sent us back down to the trial court level where we can commence merits discovery. We did preliminary discovery. Now we get merits discovery, and merits discovery is much broader. So our tools to root out the vast censorship enterprise grew exponentially. And that's exactly what we're going to do, because we've got to build a wall of separation between tech and state in order to defend our First Amendment right to free speech. And that's what we're going to do using this lawsuit. The First Amendment is still alive and well, and certainly the government is prohibited from censoring voices, even if it's on big tech. You and I know, and your listeners and viewers will recall, that the First Amendment right to free speech is a timeless principle. It doesn't matter that in 1700 they might have been talking about printing presses, and in the 1900s radio, and the 1950s TV, and the 1990s internet, and now it's big tech. It doesn't matter the medium of communication. What matters is the timeless principle that we get to have that free, fair, and open debate, and we're going to use this lawsuit to re-emphasize that freedom.
Well, I know that the darkness hates the light, and feelings hate your facts, and it's the truth is hated by the lies, and this administration is built on lies. They're built on falsehoods. We're seeing that exposed in a big way. People like you and myself and our listeners, they've seen it for a long time. It's interesting to me to now see people who have blindly followed the Democrat agenda to have their eyes open in a big way. I saw, just as a funny example, who was it? Rob Reiner, who, Meathead on
All in the Family.
Yeah. He came out, I guess it was a week ago, saying now's the time we got to double down our support and we've got to really get behind the Biden administration. And I think just yesterday or the day before, he tweeted out, he said, it's time to stop effing around. This guy's got to step down. He's got to resign. So the evolution of these guys' support is happening in real time. We're watching this unravel. I'm looking at, and by the way, you are in the middle of a primary race, correct?
Yep.
So you were appointed Attorney General. Now you're being elected Attorney General. And I assure you that if I were in the great state of Missouri, you would have my vote and my support. And so I want to encourage all of our listeners and viewers and everybody that's out there that's in Missouri, you got to get out and vote. So many people have lost their trust in that institution of our elections. And we'll get into Vote for America here in just a little bit, because something that you said earlier or alluded to about our elections is it's so important. I don't think people really realize the numbers of people out there who are not voting.
Too many.
We talk about people who are getting registered to vote, and that is a cumbersome number, but the people who are just simply not going out to vote. Yeah. And I'm going to run some numbers through on some people later on. But what are you seeing? What's kind of the temperature in Missouri as far as the voting process? Are people confident? Are they skeptical in the security and safety of their vote being counted?
I think everybody here in Missouri is generally, satisfied about the self-evident integrity of the processes here at the state level. The problem we've got in Missouri is we see other states like New York, Pennsylvania, Arizona change rules at the last minute in 2020 and have all these voting irregularities and problems. Now we see more than 10 million illegal aliens flooding this country. Who's giving them ballots, ID cards to be able to vote? And so you see all these problems. And again, the self-evident integrity of the process has been undermined by the left in the 2020 election. And now we move into 2024, and it's like this shell game of who's going to be at the top of the ticket. On the Democratic side, you see the lawfare against President Trump. On the Republican side, or against a Republican, you see silencing of conservative voices on big tech. And all of this kind of goes together. And I think there are people in Missouri, and certainly large swaths of people across this country like myself, who feel like we're left out. That there's a ruling cultural elite that get to buy things and do whatever they want. And they're not doing it to help us. They're doing it to retain power and authority over us. And so that's why I love Vote for America. Number one, you're right. Everybody needs to go to Vote for America and register to vote. They can help you. But then the next thing you need to do is find somebody you go to the shooting range with, somebody you go to the bar with, somebody you have dinner with. Find a family member that doesn't vote, register them, and then take them with you on the day of the election. We need to show up and fight and win one day, and we can take this country back, and we can send a message that our freedoms are not negotiable and they're not for sale.
Yeah, the website, and I will talk about that in a minute, but I got a legal question I want to ask you first. The website is vote4america.org. And I encourage everybody to go check that out and see what's up. I'll tell you a little more about it. I want to run some numbers past people, and it'll blow their minds. Here's a question, a legal question, and I don't even know the constitutionality of this, but I got an idea on the voting and the elections and making votes count. And would it be possible for states just to say, okay, sort of like your driver's license or your passport, no one in the state is currently registered to vote. You got to go back and re-register. So now we're going to clean the voter rolls, and we're going to say, okay, who's here, who's alive, who's legal, who needs to be voting. Would it ever be possible constitutionally? Would it ever be possible for states to do something like that? I don't think they ever would, but I'm curious if they could.
It's a really interesting question. And, in some states like Missouri, that process kind of is an ongoing process. It's almost like a rolling audit, a rolling performance audit of the election rolls. And so that happens at the local level. It happens at the state level. And so it's kind of just an ongoing process. And here in Missouri, we have a voter ID law that I've successfully defended because, gosh, you got to have an ID to drive a car, but not to vote. That's craziness. It's not racist. I mean, it's racist to say that minorities can't obtain valid IDs, so these are basic safeguards and measures we have in place in the state of Missouri. And I think it's time that other states took hard looks at their processes as well. Like when you're mailing a ballot out to everyone and then you don't know who's filling that ballot out and sending it back, when you're allowing criminal aliens to vote, that's making people in Missouri upset because that's undermining our voice in the process and is illegal and, again, antithetical to who we are as an American people.
It's a frustrating thing. And I know a lot of people are empathetic to that. They're feeling the pain of that, the fear of that. I mean, when you figure there's at least 21, almost 22 million that we know of that are in this country that are not legal to vote, whether they're here illegally or not, which again, that's a cloudy spectrum. And then you have a big talk about the, Safeguard American Voter Eligibility Act, the SAVE Act that's going through this week. I think it's this week. And a lot of people speculate, so, well, it's already illegal for, non-citizens to vote in this country. But yeah, but is it? I mean, it's also illegal for those illegals to be in this country, but we find ways around that as well. Are Republicans in Washington, D.C., because I know what so many of my listeners, followers, and people, when they respond back, they say, the Republicans in Washington, D.C. are gutless and spineless. They're not going to do anything. It's uniparty. And maybe the bureaucrats inside the Beltway, at least the ones who claim to be Republicans or conservatives, maybe that's true of them as well as the elected officials. They're not getting anything done. How much more now, as in the case with you as the Attorney General of Missouri, how much does this fall back on the state's responsibility to get this stuff done when Washington, D.C. seems to do nothing?
Well, I think it's absolutely critical that the states, assert bold action, transformative change. If we can't get it done in Congress, what are ways we can get it done at the state level? I think you've seen that. Let's go back to censorship for a minute. Not only did Missouri sue the federal government over censorship on big tech, but states like Florida and Texas passed net choice or passed these, the basically consumer protection laws that then brought about the net choice cases where the big tech social media is basically challenging a state's authority to regulate, their algorithms and their censorship mechanisms. And that litigation's ongoing as well. So we'll see how that plays out. But yeah, I mean, look at the 10th Amendment. The 10th Amendment still matters. And the 10th Amendment says that any authority not expressly given to the federal government or denied to the states is enjoyed by the states and the people of the states. And so, like, for instance, here in the state of Missouri, we codified the Second Amendment Preservation Act that is as much about much about the 10th Amendment as it is the Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms. And it says that we're not going to let the federal government coerce and cajole and hijack the apparatus of state government to carry out unconstitutional gun restrictions. I mean, this is basic stuff, and yet the Department of Justice has sued the state of Missouri because they're so upset that anyone would deign to think for themselves and tell them that they can't boss us around here in the state of Missouri because we have authority as well, and that's a self-governance issue. So the structure of the Constitution matters, the 10th Amendment matters, and absolutely we need bold leadership at the state level, warriors who are willing to take the fight to the enemies of freedom, safety, and prosperity. And that's what I've been doing at the AG's office, and I'm proud of the record I've put together.
I'm proud of it as well. General, it's they hate us. They hate us. Anybody that would throw the borders wide open and allow to happen what's happening, any government that's going to send billions of dollars to foreign countries to take care of their borders while they leave ours wide open, they hate us. I don't know if they want us eliminated or just replaced or whatever the theory may be, but they don't have our best interest at heart at this stage in the game. That's why I value men like you. I value men like my friend Ken Paxton, the Attorney General here in Texas. And the thing about it is Andrew, when you do what you do, when Ken does what he does, they hate your guts for it. And that's the sure sign. They hate you for it. Yeah. Just, again, go to the Wikipedia, the stuff that you've done. Let's list a couple of them off. So you're anti-abortion. I'm anti-abortion. You try to pass that in Missouri. What happens?
Yeah, so we passed a trigger law that went into effect when the Dobbs decision was repealed, and then instantly different groups sued the state of Missouri to try to get that law overturned. We've successfully defended it. We've fought the pro-life issue. And again, to me, it's about babies, innocent lives in the womb that have heartbeats and brain function. Those babies need a chance to live. And as a foster parent who's adopted kids, I know we can find forever loving homes for all children. So let's protect life. And that's what we've been fighting for here in the state of Missouri.
And I love it when they say, you conservatives, you don't do anything about the babies that are born. Well, you have children that you adopted. I've worked over the years to establish orphanages. That falls on deaf ears with me. Yeah. You worked to pass legislation fighting for children so that they're, whatever there's so many labels I could give them. They're parents and people like that are wanting to change their genders.
Yeah.
And you got pushback on that. I mean, this should be common sense, right? That, children shouldn't be lopping off genitals. They shouldn't be taking hormone blockers. They shouldn't be taking puberty blockers. What was the response you got when you went after that?
Vitriol from the left. We were pilloried for that. We shut down the transgender child mutilation clinics in the state of Missouri. I want Missouri to be the safest state in the nation for children. There are 0 FDA approvals for puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones to prove safe or effective in the treatment of gender dysphoria. These are dangerous, powerful, life-altering chemicals that are injected into these innocent children's bodies in the form of a fashion statement, or they're referred for irreversible surgeries that deprives them to the ability to enjoy the full spectrum of adulthood. Shame on the adults who were supposed to be watching out for these kids, who pushed them down this path of gender mutilation. I'm proud of the work my office has done, not only to investigate the wrongdoers and hold them accountable, but to defend the legislation our General Assembly passed. We were the first state in the nation to successfully defend a prohibition on those mutilation procedures at the trial court level. Again, this is a huge win for the safety of children in the state of Missouri. And yeah, the left hates us for it. They hate me more than they love children.
And that is saying, that's a great way to put that. It's demonic. It really is. It is demonic. They would love to see your dead, lifeless body in the street, and keep abusing children. It's amazing to me that switching gears on that. Another topic here. I just got 3 emails from the ATF. They notified me that my tax stamp had been approved, that my 3 suppressors that I bought 10 months ago are now waiting for me in the vault. I can go pick them up. We saw this apparent the reversal on the bump stock ban. There's all these different things that are going on. I despise the ATF with my whole heart. I mean, we talk about bureaucratic junk. Big Brother dictating to me how I can utilize my ability by my Second Amendment right to defend myself. You have somewhat of a strong visceral feeling about them as well. What's going to happen with the ATF in your opinion?
Well, they need to be abolished. Let's just get rid of them altogether. They serve no legitimate purpose except for undermining the freedoms that we have that come from God, not man, and that are protected by the United States Constitution. The Second Amendment is the one that makes all the other ones possible. The whole idea is that an armed citizenry can defend not only our hearth, home, and families and communities, but defend ourselves from a tyrannical, despotic government. You ever seen something like that? What was happening once Biden was elected during this COVID tyranny, when government bureaucrats thought that they had the authority to tell us what we could and couldn't do in our lives, that they were somehow empowered to restrict what we said, what we thought, what we did? Not on my watch. At the end of the day, our Second Amendment here in Missouri is sacred, and it's my moral obligation and sacred duty to protect and defend it. Certainly, we've done that, defending our Second Amendment Preservation Act, suing the Biden administration over their attempt to eliminate person-to-person sales at gun shows, and suing them over their illegal attempt to ban pistol braces. We've also fought blue states' attempt to manipulate the ammunition marketplace to drive up prices so that we can't afford the bullets that go into our firearms. So this is an evolving battlefield, and we've adapted to that evolving battlefield and effectively defeated the enemy each time they've come for our Second Amendment right to keep and bear arms.
You know, I drove across the state of Missouri last week. It's a gorgeous state. But again, if you go out and you read the people that are fighting against you and the things that you value, and you're trying to push for what I believe to be the values of the majority of people in Missouri, you always see things pop up like St. Louis or Kansas City. You know, I do shows every year in Kansas City. Love it. Love the people over in that area. Was just in St. Louis last week. It's amazing how the bureaucracy of the cities and the population centers really do dictate and control what the values of the rest of the state are. When Missouri is largely a rural state, it's a gorgeous state. It's a very green, very gorgeous place with cliffs and rivers and all the things that you see on the postcards. So it's a shame. You know, I was looking at these numbers on Vote for America. You know, if you look at the hunters and gun owners that are not registered to vote in America, these numbers are astounding. So in Missouri, there's 281,102 hunters and gun owners that aren't registered to vote. That's amazing to me. In Michigan, 371,000. In Georgia, 351,000 hunters and gun owners that are not registered to vote. Wisconsin, Virginia, 300 and some odd thousand in a deal like this. Pennsylvania, 515,000 that are not registered to vote. Then you get into the number of veterans that aren't registered to vote. Georgia has almost 700,000. North Carolina has 700,000. Pennsylvania has 770,000. Virginia, 707. These are astounding numbers. What that means is, based on the studies that they've done at Vote for America, is that if you had just 3% of those numbers would find a person to go and find somebody that's not registered to vote, get them registered to vote, and actually take them to the polling place, it would upend the election process. I mean, it would be landslide proportions, like Tea Party type proportions of how we would overturn this. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I totally agree. I think Vote for America is a movement. It has identified a group of people that are exercising a God-given right to keep and bear arms. And as you know, and as your listeners and viewers will recall, it's an irreducible axiomatic principle that with rights come responsibilities. We have the right to participate in the democratic process. We have the responsibility to get up and go vote. I want everybody who's listening, everybody, go to Vote for America, register, find a friend, someone you shoot with, someone you hunt with, somebody you hang out with, get them registered, and then go take that next step. Take them with you to the polling place on election day. Make sure they get there and exercise that fundamental right. If even a small percentage of folks that are currently engaged in hunting or in firearm ownership would do that, we will take this country back and no one can stop us.
Yeah, because they can only, Joe Biden didn't get 81 million votes. He did not get 81 million votes. There's no possible way that he got more black votes than Barack Obama did in two different elections. There's just no possible way. A man who didn't campaign, a man who we know is mentally not with it. He was somewhere in Delaware licking the windows and sitting on Rehoboth Beach waiting on a seagull to crap on him. The guy did nothing, right? I mean, you remember the things where he sort of does his little half jog to the stage and there's 12 people sitting in a hula hoop, socially distanced during COVID. The guy did not get 81 million votes. There's only so much that they can do to turn that algorithm up. They thought they had it turned up enough for Hillary. They didn't think Hillary needed the help, and she lost dismally. And then Joe Biden, they turned it up too much. So what are they going to do now? They're going to turn it up to 110 million and say that this lifeless cadaver sitting in the coffin and 1 foot in the grave that sees into the realm of eternity and calls out dead Congress people to come up to the stage is suddenly getting 100 million votes. There's no possible way. So if we go out and overwhelm the algorithm, there's only so much that it's not. This isn't Spinal Tap. They can't turn the knob up to 11 at this point. So again, the numbers are astounding. If just 3%, would go out and find one person, and that's why, I got familiar with Vote for America as a whatever you want to call it, as a content creator, social media influencer. There's about 3,200 big influencers out there in the hunting and the fishing, the military, police, the country music, the homeschool moms, the female collegiate athletes that are tired of dudes with dingleberries getting in the pool with them. They're out there. They're talking about Vote for America. And this is the kind of thing that's going to change America and bring the values back. It gets the power structure out of Kansas City, out of St. Louis, out of New York City, out of, LA and San Francisco, out of Austin, Texas. So, I pray people will listen to us, General. I really do. I pray that they will listen to us because, the thing that I love about you, sir, is you're one of us. And the fact you always know what a person stands for and who that person is based on who his enemies are. You got all the right enemies. How can, and I know I got, suing the Department of Justice and all the stuff that you're up against takes a lot of time and energy and effort. So I'm going to let you go here. I know just another minute. How can people help you in this election process that you're in to make sure that your values continue to influence the state of Missouri?
Well, again, I want everybody that's a gun owner or a veteran out there, go to Vote for America, register to vote, go find a friend, get them registered to vote, take them with you to the polling place. In order to help me out, if you live in Missouri on August 6th, show up, vote in the Republican primary, vote Bailey to send a message to New York and Wall Street and the special interest that Missouri's not for sale. Go check out BaileyMo.com. That's BaileyMO.com. We'd love your support. keep feeding us ammunition. We'll keep engaging and destroying the bad guys.
And you're doing a good job of it. Please let me know any way that I can help you, and anything that we can share out there. We want to do it. And I want to come visit with you sometime because like I said, I know there's always things you can't say on podcasts, but I understand your heart and I know where you're at, and it's phenomenal, the job that you're doing. So our prayers are with you, and we're working as hard as we can to make sure that that the people with values like your own are the ones who are in those leadership positions, who are actually have the backbone to get something done. Thank you for doing what you're doing.
Hey, God bless you. Can't thank you enough for your time, and we'll keep up the good fight.
Yes, sir. Attorney General Andrew Bailey, thank you so much for joining us. And for those of you out there who want to get involved, this is how you do it, folks. This is the nuts and bolts. This is the how-to. These are the ingredients to freedom right here. It is getting out there and letting your voice be heard so that the bigger voices out there that have the influence can go out there and get something done. So check it out, and make sure that you're supporting all of these entities, these organizations. Visit the website. You'll see them on the Cryon down below, and do what you got to do, folks. Do what you got to do. This country matters, and it can be saved. Go to watchchad.com is where all the fun stuff is. Thank you for being a part of not only this episode, but of the Chad Prather Show family. And we want you to continue to support us just simply with ratings and reviews. That's what we like, and that's what helps us. So until next time, we love you. God bless you, and we will talk to you then. Bye.